Hey, listeners, this is Chuck, the Laterante from Private Family Banking. Thanks for listening today. You know what? With Private Family Banking, you don't need any new money. We just capture the cash flow you already have going through your life. If you're a high net worth earner, we can also help you save estate taxes. We can, for those of you who are W-2 or small businesses, if you have 401k money, IRA money, we can liberate that. We can multiply that. We can save you taxes and get you into a tax-deferred environment in a different way and multiply that money. You think you're alone, you're not. Join our community. We're a community of investors, entrepreneurs, coaches, and business developers. Don't delay. Join Private Family Banking today. Click the link below, schedule your free discovery call, or email me, chuck@privatefamilybanking.com. Thank you.
We have another dangerous friend on today. Stick around with Jamie Bambrick. Exploring theology, doctrine, and all of the fascinating subjects in between, broadcasting from an undisclosed location, Dead Men Walking starts
now.
Well, hello. Welcome back to another episode of Dead Men Walking Podcast. I'm your host, Greg Moore. You can find out more about us at dmwpodcast.com. Follow us on X at Real DMW Podcast or anywhere on socials at Dead Men Walking Podcast. Thanks for coming back, guys. Thanks for hanging out. And we appreciate you sharing with a friend, telling a friend, sharing the podcast, sharing the videos. We really appreciate it. I'll talk about this a lot. We have a lot of listeners audio-wise, but not so many at YouTube. So if you ever watch our YouTube videos, make sure you're sharing it. Share the link. That'll get us some viewership on YouTube. We're very grateful for everyone that listens on the audio podcast. But we upload these each week too, the videos. So before we get into it, I want to tell you about three quick sponsors and a conference. Dominion Wealth Strategists, the only distinctly reformed financial company, full service financial planning and wealth planning. I mean, personal, business, church finances. These guys will have you covered. Love Justin and Josiah over there. They do budgeting, debt management, savings, life and health insurance, retirement planning, estate planning, business services. Man, they will help you manage your money. All of Christ for all of life, all of finance for all of Christendom is their motto, and I love it. You can find them at reformed.money, or you can just click on the link below. Click through. Let's use these guys. Let's have good stewardship over our money and wealth. I think it's biblically commanded, and these are the guys to help you do it. Also, Private Family Banking. Be your own bank. Now is the time to leverage the MAGA economy. You can leverage savings from your IRAs, Roth, 401ks, 403bs. Don't give that money back to the government. Become your own bank. Fiat money is kind of a thing of the past anyway. I mean, we've got digital money going. We got Bitcoin. Now, this isn't that, but my point is let's be our own bank. Let's not rely on the banking cartels, right? Chuck over at Private Family Banking can help you with that. We've had quite a few people call him, and he has helped them out. Come and join a community of business owners, entrepreneurs, and investors who will show you how to multiply your money while enjoying added income tax protection and building legacy wealth. You need to join the parallel economy today, guys. He's a believer. He's reformed. We love Chuck. We want to support him. And also, if you click on the link in the description, you can get a free copy of their ebook, How to Build Multi-Generational Wealth Outside of Wall Street and Avoid the Coming Banking Meltdown, which, let's face it, with our fiat money, there will be another banking meltdown. So let's be in front of it, guys. Let's be wise. And then also, finally, Andrew Rappaport, one of our good buddies, good friends, done some conferences with him. Have you ever want to do a Bible conference and you go, my church isn't big enough, or I don't know how to do it, or where would I start? Well, you got to call Striving for Eternity Ministries, Andrew Rappaport. He will help you set that up. He actually organizes those, and he's a speaker at a lot of conferences internationally. He's been all around the world. He can bring topics to your church that include how to interpret the Bible, evangelism, apologetics, the social justice wars, cessationism, creation, signs, the family, much, much more. He is a speaker that will come to your church and organize that. He even knows other speakers that can come. So he'll help you from top to bottom, create that conference at your church. Striving for Eternity will come there no matter what the size of the church is. Give them a call. Or you can just reach out to them at the link below. Click on it, contact them through the website, and Andrew Rappaport and Striving for Eternity Ministries will come out there. Guys, also too, want to remind you that we will be, Dead Men Walking will be podcasting live from the Dangerous Friends Conference. Now, that Dangerous Friends, if it sounds familiar, if you're on Twitter X or especially within the Reformed Twitter X community, has been getting all kinds of play with, they were initially had Kelvin Robinson speaking and then rescinded that offer. And there's people going back and forth and arguing. And Michael Foster's put out his thing, who's also speaking at this. And James White has been going back and forth. And I've been behind the scenes on this for the last couple months. I mean, talking to Kelvin, talking to James White, talking to Michael Foster. Those are private conversations. But my point of the matter is he is no longer there, but we have a great lineup at Dangerous Friends. It's in Toledo, Ohio, which is about 30 miles away from me, or 30 minutes from me. So I'll be there March 13th and 14th. So we've had a couple of the speakers come on, as we do when we attend conferences. We have them come on first. We get to know them. You listened to Seth Gruber a couple of weeks ago. Now it's been a couple of weeks. And today we had Jamie Bambrick on. He's from Ireland. He's the associate pastor, Hope Church. He has a phenomenal YouTube channel talking about these kind of things, politics, culture, doctrine, theology, some of the stuff that we talk about here on the podcast. So I knew it was going to be a good fit. And we went for about 40 minutes, and we talked about what he's going to be speaking at the conference. We talked about his YouTube channel and the topics he covers there. What does it mean to have dangerous friends? What do we gather around? What can we agree on? What do we disagree on? He gave us a little history, church history too, of Ireland and what's been going on there over the last 30 years. I found that very interesting, since sometimes here in America, we're in our own little American bubble. And Americans don't do a real good job of kind of looking globally to what's happening in other countries. So he filled us in on that and kind of the swing away from Catholicism to secularism and where Protestants fall, and how the gospel is being preached there, which I found very interesting at the top of the show. And then we got into our other subjects. But yeah, guys, as always with the Dangerous Friends too, the Dangerous Friends Conference, if you want to go right now, you can click on the link below in this video or in this audio podcast that you're listening to. And if you type in DMW, Dead Men Walking, DMW 25, you get $25 off your ticket price. So, hey, save a little money just by being a Dead Men Walking listener. And we'd like to see you there. If you do end up attending, come say hi at our booth. We'll be live podcasting there. But yeah, Seth Gruber, Jamie Bambrick, Stephen Whitlow, Rosario Butterfield, Steve Dace. I mean, the lineup's pretty sick. It's going to be a good time. And it's going to be talking about what happens when you get dangerous friends together, what can be accomplished. And I think it'll be just a great conference put on by Clear Truth Media, of course. The cool thing is I got some other podcast friends coming. Parker Brown from Watchwell will be there podcasting. Myself, of course, with Dead Men Walking. I believe we confirmed Keith Foskey coming up from Florida. He'll be there. Cody Fields from Westminster Effects just said he'll be there. Corey from Civically Minded is driving up from the Carolinas to be there. I mean, it's going to be a fun time. It's going to be rowdy. We're going to be doing some live streaming. We'll be doing some man on the street stuff, probably talking to the speakers, interviewing them. You're not going to want to miss that. And that'll be pushed out on all our social media stuff. But yeah, the conversation with Jamie was awesome. Hope you guys enjoy the episode. Not too much going on here, just getting ready for a new year in real estate. Personally, making some plans. I'm going to be doing some interesting things for the brokerage that have to do with a microphone and a video. So you might see some stuff that I might be pushing out to you guys too, to help educate people on investing and real estate, things like that, especially when you're a believer. I think real estate is probably one of the best things you can invest in. So we'll be doing some interviews there that are more real estate related on my Covenant Real Estate channel. And we'll link those up when it comes to it. If any of you who listen to this podcast are interested in buying, selling, investing, flipping, even, looking at residential, commercial, vacant land, hunting land, places you can bug out to if you need to, if stuff goes south, that kind of stuff. But that's what's kind of coming in 2025. But other than that, next thing you'll hear is me and Jamie Bambrick being dangerous and dangerous friends together. Here we go. Yeah, and you're over there in Ireland, right?
That's right. Yeah, Northern Ireland. So that's
Okay.
a technical point of difference in terms of we're
Northern.
part of the UK, whereas the Republic of Ireland is not. So I'm on the northern side, but on
Okay,
the
I
same
should.
island of Ireland. So there you go.
You know, when I got my ancestry back, was 50% Irish, which I knew we were Irish because boy, my grandmother and my great grandmother don't let me forget it. But yeah, I
Yeah, yeah.
probably should know a little bit more about Ireland. So it's half my heritage,
Yeah,
huh?
it's, don't worry. That we have a very complex political situation that unless you're following it reasonably closely, it's kind of hard to tell what's going on. And we have weird things like we have a local government as well as being under the UK government in Westminster. So our local government is kind of like a state within the UK. So we have some
Yeah,
rights that we have as a province. Technically, we're a province. That's what it's considered.
yeah.
Yeah. So
But
anyway,
yeah, we're rolling right now. So Jamie, welcome to the podcast. Appreciate you being here, brother.
oh well, thank you for having me. Pleasure to be with you.
Maybe we should add in the Irish talk there at the top of the show. I always say I'm half Irish, about half Polish, so I like to drink, but I can't find the bar. You know,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
my
Nice.
that's
Nice.
my
Very good.
go-to drink.
Extremely Catholic, though. Extremely Catholic.
Yeah,
You can't get two
Ireland
more
is.
Catholic nations. Oh, Poland
Yeah,
too. They're we're it's fighting it out for who's the most Catholic country, at least historically. The Irish have lost that fight now. Sadly, say sadly, it's not like they've become Protestant; they've become woke secularists. But there you go.
wow. Yeah, so
Yeah.
give us a little background on that, since you're in Ireland. We're going to get into obviously Dangerous Friends Conference coming up. You're a speaker there, what you do on YouTube and social media. But like, for those that don't know, and probably most of my listeners don't, what is kind of like the background going on in Northern Ireland where you're from?
Yeah, sure. So Ireland obviously is known for being a very Catholic country, but the north was largely Protestant, actually. So that was a point of division. So whenever the Republic of Ireland, what went on to become the Republic of Ireland, left the United Kingdom, the 6 northern counties stayed as part of the United Kingdom because the south was all Catholic and the north was Protestant and wanted to be part of the, at that point, Protestant country of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, to give it its full technical term. So we're in the name. And
Right.
obviously, then over the last 25 years or so, Ireland in the south has really secularized at a rapid rate. And we're talking faster than anywhere on earth because it came from a very high point of Catholicism, actually, where mass attendance in 1990 was about 85% of the population on a weekly basis. So if you imagine 85% of your people showing up to church, like Catholic church, but
Yeah.
and not now it's in the 20s and dropping every year, and no priests coming through, all of that stuff. So that's an interesting case. I think it's actually very interesting on some of the issues of not having a fundamentally solid gospel grounding. Actually,
Okay.
the north is probably the most Christian place in Western Europe still at this point. 50% of the population considers themselves a practicing Christian. Church attendance is about 25% on a weekly basis, and prayer and belief in the Bible are pretty high. But we're also experiencing all the same fights that everywhere else is, where you have this rabid secularism going on, woke ideology coming in, and a church that, sadly, despite having had a lot of conviction historically, has somewhat collapsed in terms of its prophetic witness to the culture. So yeah, we're fighting a lot of the same fights. We're probably a little bit more similar to a US context, perhaps because of that Christian worldview, than perhaps the mainland UK would be.
So you think the rapid decline is just not having grounding in the gospel? I mean, that's pretty rapid. If you're going from 85 to 20 in basically a 25, 30-year period, I mean, the US has declined. People who identify, Protestants who identify with Christianity has declined quite rapidly as well, but not quite like that. I mean, is there any other factors that you think could contribute to that?
Yeah, sure. So it's a very interesting historical case. So actually, I think the Catholic Church did a very interesting job in the 1800s. It was more nominally Catholic, and they did an incredible work of social engagement by the Catholic Church, and wrote some very good books that I think actually have some relevance for Protestants, even in terms of culturally engaging as Christians, and really embedded the Catholic faith into every sphere of society. So that by the 1900s, so that you're going from the early to mid 1800s, it was about 40% up to 90+% for almost all of the 1900s, and 85% even at the tail end of that. But I do think what you had within that was a huge amount of religiosity and nominalism, which then, whenever there was a scandal, so there was a huge scandal to do with priests, with all of the sexual sins and crimes against people, also to do with adoption, where they were basically selling babies that were put up. They were taking babies from single mothers because that was very frowned upon. I understand we don't want to have single parenthood, but then selling the babies to foreign, often American adoptive families who didn't know the situation. They were being told that these were orphans, but they were in fact taking these children. So the Catholic Church lost all of its moral standing in the community, and went almost overnight from being the upstanding, moral voice of the nation to really being morally considered the lowest of the low. But I do think a lot of the decline was because a lot of these people didn't have real faith. That would be my take on it.
So do we see pockets, and we won't stay too long on this, but this interests me. Are we seeing pockets of kind of reformation and revival in Ireland, the things that like you are doing? And we'll talk about your YouTube channel and kind of your ministry, what you're doing. But I mean, is there hope there? Do you see flashes of the gospel coming through?
Yeah, I think in the north, yes. So the north, as I said, is very Protestant, and I think there is certainly a stronger church here than there is in most of the Western Europe. So there are stronger pulpits in general, more biblical fidelity, more appreciation of courage within the church. So by no means perfectly so, but there's more scope for it in the north. And where that's happening, it's good. The Republic is a different world entirely. It's about 1.5% evangelical, which is the least reached nation from that perspective in the English-speaking world, and about half of those evangelicals are immigrants. So it really is a spiritually difficult place. I have friends down that way who are planting churches, or have planted churches, various other organizations that I know there. And it's a tough place. Most of those churches are made up of and supported by immigrants that have come into the country, where we've had massive immigration. Plenty of downsides to that. One of the good sides has been that there's some good evangelical Christians coming in and keeping the churches somewhat afloat. So up north, I'm encouraged. I think there's potential for people getting together of a like mind, and from various different. I've had ever since I've got more public profile. Not that I have a massive public profile, but just a little bit. I've had people reach out from completely different denominations, backgrounds, and appreciative of what I'm doing, and opportunities to work together with people who I might not have ever crossed paths with otherwise. So I think there's potential for sure.
Okay, so coming up in a country that historically was predominantly Catholic, and then seeing it kind of fall to secularism, where do you fall denominationally, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, so I am technically a member of the Church of Ireland, which is Anglican. So now, the Church of Ireland is better than the Church of England. I struggle to say that I am Anglican. I'm there by default. We would be a conservative evangelical and contemporary styled church. So people wouldn't really know that we're Anglican. Some of our own congregants are slightly surprised when they hear that, because they've been coming for a little bit and we're not tied into the Anglican world. We were started about 10 years ago, where there was a church that split, and the bishop said, well, look, we have two churches here, so why don't you guys go and plant one? So I've only been here in this church for, I've been going about 3 and a bit years, and on staff for just over 2. But I'm there because the senior pastor, we actually were over in a church in England. I was a campus pastor of a very large campus of about 900 people in one of the biggest churches in the UK. And when COVID and BLM all happened, it got to an impasse where I couldn't stay, because I felt like it was going against my convictions and what I felt was right. And the pastor of this church was one of very few people, really the only one that I knew or even knew of at that point, although there were others, but I hadn't come across them, who was demonstrating some courage and some conviction and speaking about some of these issues with clarity. So I'm there. I was friends with him, slightly prior to moving back. We had interacted a bit, so that's how we ended up where we are. So I don't really feel particularly Anglican. I'm there because of a friendship, and because the church itself is more a sort of conservative, evangelical, non-denominational church is how it would appear for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, so you've been there a few years. You have a widely popular YouTube channel. If you wouldn't mind, shout that out for us so people can go like and subscribe that. But tell me a little bit about what you do on the YouTube channel and the type of videos that you are creating.
Yeah, sure. So my YouTube channel is just under my own name. So Jamie Bambrick, if I say it like an American, because if I say Jamie, everyone will think I'm saying Jimmy, and then it just gets confusing. So yeah, I started that a couple of years ago. Really because I saw some good guys over in the States starting to put out content, or that had been putting out content for some time, speaking to cultural issues from a Christian perspective, speaking to a broad range of things, but obviously engaging with culture I felt was very important. And I didn't see a lot of UK voices doing the same thing. I didn't see a lot of people over here, really in Europe at all, speaking to those issues. So it had been on my heart for a long time to do, but I didn't feel fully at peace about it until actually taking up my current pastoral role. I didn't want to just live on the internet. I feel like it's good to be around real people and be involved in a real, local church ministry. I felt was important to me personally. I would never want to do this full time, actually, even if I was able to, which I'm not currently, although it is done pretty well. But yeah, so speaking of cultural issues, I try and keep it very short and try and make it interactive. I felt there was a need there as well for a lot of the content that's really good is longer form, and that's wonderful, but it doesn't necessarily appeal to people that maybe just won't have time to listen to a 90-minute podcast on something. If I can take those main points and sow those ideas in a 15-minute video, that's really what I try and do so in a way that appeals to people that have maybe not heard them before. So yeah, going a couple of years and thoroughly enjoyed doing so.
Yeah, so I'm always interested because sometimes we don't realize, those of us who create content as well too, that boy, you can reach the far parts of the earth. I've gotten messages from Texas and Trinidad and Belfast and London, right? Like, hey, I heard this, or what do you think about that? Where do you see most of your people that are listening or watching your content? Where are they coming from? Is it from Ireland, and then where are some other places where you go, I didn't know I'm reaching that part of the world?
Yeah, no, it is interesting. So about half of my audience is American, which I don't think is overly surprising. Just if you're talking about Christianity in English, you're going to get an American audience to some extent.
Sure.
But then after that, we would have the UK would be next. So everywhere around the UK, Australia, Canada, South Africa, and then you have some interesting places. I don't sit and go through my analytics that much, but I've seen Germany actually does quite well. Where else?
Okay.
Singapore, places like that. So yeah, it's really interesting having a reach that kind of goes around the Anglosphere and a bit around Europe as well. And yeah, India did all right. I don't know who in India is watching me. I'm very sorry for my accent, dear Indian viewers, because this is not an easy one if English is not your first language. But
sure.
yeah.
No, that's awesome. And guys, if you're listening or watching, we're going to link that up below. So just go in the description below. You can click right through on his name and it'll get you to his YouTube channel and all his information. But yeah, so let's talk about Dangerous Friends a little bit, because I think you might be winning the award for farthest traveled for this conference coming up in March with Clear Truth Media, Dangerous Friends 25, which you're a contributor to Clear Truth Media as well too. Our mutual friend, Stephen Whitlow, kind of heading that up along with you. Yeah, Dangerous Friends is going to be fun. We've got a lot of podcasters actually coming. I told you, I was just on a group chat with a few of them. Keith Foskey told me to tell you hi. He's going to be there. Parker Brown, Watchwell. I'll be there covering it. Cody Fields with Westminster Effects. We've got Eschatology Matters. So a lot of bigger podcasts in the United States are traveling there to cover this conference. I think it's going to be really good because the subject matter alone, and it kind of dovetails into what Clear Truth Media is all about too, which is kind of post-denominational. A lot of different guys who we agree with the core tenets of Orthodox Christianity, but might be different denominations, have some different views on secondary issues, but all coming together for a common goal of kind of fighting the secularists and the pagans and trash world and all, and the wokeness and the leftists and the progressives and all these things that we have going on now. I kind of want to talk about, maybe you could give us a little bit of a sneak peek. Don't tell everything, because we want people to come to the conference and listen to what you're talking about, but maybe give us a 10,000 foot overview of kind of what you're bringing to the conference and what you might be speaking on.
Yeah, sure. So the conference is going to be awesome, and we've got great names coming. So Rosaria Butterfield, Steve Dace, Seth Gruber, Michael Foster, and Steve Whitlow, and somehow myself as well going there, which would be nice, and I'm privileged to be there. I think the premise behind the whole thing is that we are very much entering a new world within Christianity, and I think that new world came to fruition around 2020. Sure, there had been signs of it prior, and there's been plenty of stuff that has gone on since, but I think there was a real shift that happened in the church world, which there were a couple of things that were really important to that. Firstly, a lot of our major institutions within the church didn't do a great job of directing the church, and ones with big platforms. So a lot of people were tuning in, a lot of pastors were tuning in. They didn't do a good job of directing the church on issues such as COVID and BLM, which were particularly relevant in 2020. Haven't done a good job in terms of political engagement, which again, big in 2020, also big in 2024. And so a lot of people have been looking around going, well, where do we go? Where do we find people that are like-minded? We thought that these people were our friends. We thought that these people were on our side. But it turns out that if we actually in any way push back on some of the real stuff that I think Christians are called to push back on, that they will call us out much more aggressively than they will call out those issues themselves. And it's kind of the whole nuance left, punch right kind of thing. And so what's happened very naturally is I think people have found new friends, new people whom they like and get on with, and whom they see eye to eye with, and feel like they can go into battle with in the conflict that is currently facing us against those things that you mentioned there. And part of it, the reason why so that's the friends, but the reason why it's dangerous, I suppose, is that a lot of the sort of traditional ways in which Christians would line up behind one another shifted as a result of that. So no longer, I think, do people have more affinity for someone who just happens to be in their denomination. I think that's why we use that term post-denominationalism. It's not that denominations are not good or that we're anti-denominational, or that we think that every church should be non-denominational or anything like that. Not by any means. I think God uses denominations in wonderful ways. But I also think that a lot of churches' prime, collaborators and main relationships are not going to be within their denominations anymore. So a lot of those secondary issues are of less importance at this particular point. So whether someone is Infant Baptist or Credo Baptist, probably not going to define whether or not they can be friends and whether or not they can do good work together. That may have been an issue historically, but actually those guys are getting pushed into the same camp. Similar on things like the gifts of the Spirit, I think we find some cessationists and some continuationists battling alongside one another in the same fight. So, things like even Calvinism and Arminianism, I think there are guys there who lean more one camp, lean more another, strongly in one camp, strongly in another even, but they're going, no, we're on the same team, and we see that we're on the same team, and we're both pointing in the same direction, fighting the same enemy. And we were very happy to hash out some of those issues, but view each other as friends in the process. So that's kind of the aim, is to go, well, why don't we bring these people together who are rather different, and we can maybe talk about some of those differences, but also talk about what we can do together and what's needed, why the church needs people to unite around core doctrine, to fight against the spirit of the age, to give healthy theology to the church that is not, because a lot of the good theology is 90% good, but there's 10% of it's poison. It's infected with that wokeness. If we can get that 90%, have that healthy 90% and keep rid of that, get rid of that poison, that'll be really good. That's what we're aiming to do. And Dangerous Friends will be a wonderful place for people to meet up, talk about that, connect with each other, connect with good people, hear more about how we can do that and different people's perspectives on that. So I'm really excited for it. I think it'll be a great conference. I'm excited to meet all the people that you've mentioned there, as well as many others.
Yeah, so of course we're talking about the Dangerous Friends Conference. That's March 13th and 14th, Toledo, Ohio. You can get your tickets by clicking on the link below, dangerousfriends25.com, but we'll link it up for you guys if you're interested. And then, of course, just type in DMW25 at checkout, get $25 off that, being a Dead Men Walking listener. With that being said, I wanted to kind of cruise up to 30,000 feet altitude and look down and go, okay, two-part question. When we have dangerous friends, what do we unite around and what do we kind of let fall away? It sounded like you touched on that a little bit. Secondary issues can kind of go away. So what are the primary issues we can unite on? And then the second part of that is the primary issues we then unite on for what purpose? What are we fighting? So, I have a lot of evangelical Christians that will rally against the theology of Catholicism, but then say we can link arms on abortion on that. And I can stand on a sidewalk with them or go to my state legislator or to Washington, D.C. and fight that with them. I have some that will then say, I'm not going to link arms with, let's say, Mormon or Jehovah's Witness on things because we believe in a different Jesus and a different Messiah. So what are we uniting around when it comes to dangerous friends? And then what is the danger when we unite around there? Is there a litmus test for what we are fighting? Are we just fighting theology? Are we fighting government regulation? Are we fighting a political or cultural war with those people? What do you see when I pose that two-part question to you? What are the answers to that in your mind?
Yeah, excellent question. So I think in terms of what we are uniting around, I think so just to frame that ever so slightly, I think you can unite or you can partner with people in different ways for different things, right?
Sure.
So that question it's not the same answer for every area of life, and we'll maybe unpack that in a little moment. What we are explicitly about at Clear Truth, in our statement of faith, we have a core doctrine agreement, and we also have a cultural values statement. And in those, we are explicitly framed as being evangelical, or you could say, broadly Protestant within our framework. And that's
Sure.
because our mission is to the church. So our mission is to bring a sense of revitalization and a new institution that serves the church. And in order to do that, we need to say, well, what do we mean by a church, and what kind of church are we serving? So we are explicit on the doctrine, Protestant doctrinal statements, and on, say the five solas. I don't think they're in there by name, but they are unpacked in terms of as those concepts are explicit within our statement of faith. And so, I'll not get into specifics, but as you may have seen, as many people possibly saw, there was a speaker who we had invited, who we assumed fell, inside those bounds, and turns out, to be honest, he probably didn't, and there were points of disagreement there. that made it not a good fit for this particular conference. And we honor, his courage and many other things about him. But nonetheless, that wasn't going to work for what we are uniting and what we are uniting for. So I think when it comes to uniting in anything that pertains to the church, I think you do have to be agreed on that. If our ministry is to Christians and our ministry is to the church, then we do need to have that as our foundation. And within that, then you have that flexibility. You have that flexibility of, okay, well, we can all see that Infant Baptists and Credo Baptists are part of the same, universal church, not the same necessarily local church, but universal church. And so we're not calling each other outside of the bounds of the faith for disagreeing on those issues. So that's kind of our framework. Also then within that, as I said, is our cultural values, because there are people that maybe agree on doctrine, but are not willing to fight some of the fights that are facing us at this moment. Our cultural values are explicit on things like critical theory, explicit on things like abortion and so on. So those kind of areas where we have those external matters that we want to be explicit about rejecting and advancing truth within. And then it's a question, as you said, what are we uniting for? So I do think, for instance, you say, well, can we link arms with Catholics? We can link arms with them over politics. I think if they vote in the same direction, I would vote for someone. If you have two options between a radical secularist, pro-abortion candidate and a Catholic candidate, and I'm not going to go to their Catholic church, but their policies are good, I'm going to pick the Catholic. I think, do you call that uniting? What do you mean by that? But
Right.
So we're not talking about ecclesiological unity there. We're talking about, for the sake of a political reality that we're trying to advance, that might be the best option. And you can do that with other people. I think you can vote for someone who doesn't profess the faith, as many Christians did, by the way, for Donald Trump, who I don't think really professes what seems to be a sincere faith. But can you unite behind him as a political leader? Yes, you can. And so you might prefer a Protestant option, but nonetheless, you can do so.
Yeah, I'm always interested in that because I'm involved in politics. I'm a locally elected official here in Michigan as well. And there will be times where, for instance, a year ago, I'm at a school board meeting and I have me, the Muslim, and the non-believer all standing together going, we believe this policy is bad for children. Now, I'm espousing it because I believe it's biblical principle. The Muslim has a different reason. The secularist or non-believer has a different reason. But politically, we all agree in this thing that I think is God honoring, whether they know it or not. And I have no problem standing there and saying, yeah, these guys agree with me. And for that, whatever that partnership is, meaning we're moving in the same direction on a policy or a legislative act, I would never go into some type of money changing business with them. We're not building a rec center together. We're not doing these other things. So I think the line's drawn there. But if we dig down on that, you're basically, sounds like you're saying the same thing, and I'm agreeing with you, is there's varying degrees of partnership for certain things. Politically, I think it's a little more broad or liberal to use, not to use it in the political sense, but a little more give, right? To where when we're coming to theology, doctrine, business partnerships, things like that, I think it's a little more lean. Where do conferences fall in that? Because I seem to have personally a little more liberty there when it comes to, hey, this guy doesn't believe exactly what we believe on maybe some secondary issues. But if the conferences we're doing this for X reason, which I think Clear Truth Media has a very well stated kind of mission statement. I agreed with what you said. I agree with what Michael Foster said about, hey, this person that we had and then was uninvited didn't really meet that criteria. I'm on board with that as well too. But we see a lot of these conferences popping up, especially in the United States. I don't know how it is in Ireland, but we have a very robust kind of conference cycle in the last 3 to 5 years. And I think it was due to COVID. And I think it was something that most podcast listeners, YouTube viewers were doing already. They were picking you. Hey, I like my Jamie. I like my Rosaria. I like my Steve Dace, and we're listening to all these different things. And they go, yep, well, they're not, I don't agree 100% on everything with them, but they're kind of my, I go to for this area of expertise. And then naturally you put them together in a conference, and a lot of people will buy tickets and go, yeah, I want to hear what they have to say, even though I might not agree 100% on everything theological or doctrinally with them. I think it's a natural progression of the digital age over the last 10 years. And we're kind of just catching up with that in conferences. Yeah, you had that maybe once a year. 30 years ago, you'd have a big conference and you'd get 6 speakers. Now you have enough personalities where I could go to a conference that's going to have 1,000, 2,000 people at it once a month if I wanted to. So I see, I'm wondering, are are we okay with that? Are conferences okay to where it seems like the answer is going to be yes, because you're going to be at one and I'm going to be at one. But just for the listener's sake, we look at that and we say, okay, this is something that we can, like you said, partner with. We don't have to agree 100% on anything, but even conferences have a foundation, right? Of we have to
Yeah.
agree on these basic things, which it sounds like it's under the Clear Truth Media kind of mission statement, which anyone can read. Click below. You can go to Clear Truth Media and check out what they're all about too, because that was huge. I mean, I can't believe the soft launch was huge on that. That came out of nowhere. I called up Steve and I go, "You see the action you're getting on X right now and Facebook?" And people were really excited about the idea that you and him put forth on Clear Truth Media.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good insight actually about the nature of conferences and that being an overflow of the digital world. I think that's spot on actually. Of we do live in a sort of, and there's downsides to that, by the way, as well, where people can be a bit consumeristic, and it can feed into that. But yeah, and I think it depends in terms of, can you speak at the same conference as someone. It probably depends a little bit again what that conference is for and what that conference is saying. So for instance, if you do a TPUSA conference, it's about political conservatism, and you might end up having a Christian speaker speaking alongside a non-Christian speaker
Sure.
within that, and that would be fine. The Christian is not then baptizing the non-Christian as being that's more that political unity, and that might be a matter of conscience, but I don't think it's easy to say that that's incorrect to go and speak at something like that. Yeah, with us, because our conference is, so if I can give our mission statement, this then ties into the nature of our conference, which is Clear Truth Media exists to serve Christians, pastors, and the local church with doctrinally sound and relevant content. So it is targeted towards the church. Doctrinal soundness is important. By that, what we mean is, look at the statement of faith where we have outlined what we consider to be sound, with breadth within that. So we're not excommunicating one another over tiny things or saying that person's unsound because they disagree. They just disagree. And that might mean we can't all go to the same church together, because if someone's got a church where they definitely want to baptize babies and another one has one they definitely don't, then maybe we shouldn't be in the same local body. But can we get together with one another, partner on the areas that we can partner in, try and bless the wider church with some important insights, ideas, inspiration, encouragement, absolutely. And so I think conferences can do that actually in a way that maybe local bodies can't and shouldn't. By the way, I think that's okay.
Yeah. And I should say, and I always say this, and people probably get tired of me who listen every week, but also, fair disclaimer too. We talk about conferences and you like your podcast guys and your YouTube guys. Please, if you're out there listening, don't let that replace your local church, your pastor. I'm a member of my church. I have a pastor and elders that have authority over me, and I'm not out there just listening to Jamie or whoever. As good as Jamie is, and as much as we like him, he's not your pastor, right? So make sure you are part of a local church and you have that authority as well too. It's tough because I see a lot of younger generations that started 15 years ago, and the trend has been, I don't know if I need church. And it was really trending that way. And the awesome thing is, and God and his sovereignty, we went, look what's going on with COVID. Look at the globalism, right? Look at all these things. What I found, and tell me if you agree with this, because I started this podcast 1 month into COVID in April of 2020. It was 1 month for us. We got locked down for 9 weeks here in Michigan. I couldn't even go outside. My county, I could, and that's a different story because I had created some legislation a month before about constitutional rights for the sheriff as a county commissioner, but that's another story. But my point was, got locked down for 9 weeks, couldn't go outside. I said, let's start a podcast. What I realized when globalism, secular globalism was really putting its boot on our neck, I realized, wow, the global visible church is a lot bigger than what I realized. I was in my Western American kind of bubble, right? And I went, wait a minute, there's Jamie's in Ireland, and there's guys in London, and there's people in Yemen. doing underground work. And oh my goodness, the visible church will go forth. And much like the martyrs and even the early church, when we are under persecution, seems to refine us a little bit. And I think it really backfired, and it should, because Satan doesn't understand the sovereignty of God. He's the father of lies. He tries to do things that will persecute and hurt the church. And what I found is it really kind of separated the wheat and the chaff. It kind of pushed them aside and said, okay, these were the ones playing church. And here are the real church, the ones that will stay open, the ones that will gather, the ones that will proclaim Christ crucified, the ones that will preach the gospel no matter what the cost, the ones that will worship psalms in the public square, not standing 6 feet away for some stupid law and get arrested for it. Here are the ones that say, no, Christ is king. And it was really rejuvenated my faith, actually. And I tell a lot of people, I homeschool. I'm a real estate broker that works from home, and I didn't have to mask in my county due to some local constitutional regulations that me and my other county commissioners put in place. My children really didn't even know there was a pandemic going on by the grace of God. We kind of went, through life as normal. Obviously, the news and all that, we knew stuff was going on, but my life didn't change all that much, and neither did my children's or my wife's, and glory to God for that. But what did change was seeing people like you, seeing, other people that I didn't really know about, and go, oh, wow, the global visible church is a real thing and God is good. Did you kind of see that in Ireland as well and across the globe when you were going through, I don't know, we don't want to, 5 years later, still talking about COVID, but I think that was a monumental shift in the visible church, 2020, 2021, 2022. And we're kind of reaping the benefits of that now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I think it's been really, really interesting to see these connections that have formed. And I think, yeah, the internet as well within that, because it became more prominent, and there was a downside, so a lot of churches decided to do internet church, which I don't agree. I think it's an oxymoron, it doesn't exist, because it literally means internet gathering, and you don't gather on the internet. That's not a thing, right? But one of the things that it did was I think it inspired a lot of Christians to actually just try putting stuff on the internet and putting good stuff on the internet. And you talk about yourself, and I was similar within that, even though I actually didn't start until after that, because again, I wanted to be in that local church ministry role. But I think the internet is an incredible tool for sharing the gospel, for sharing truth, for bringing people together. Actually, in many ways, people talk about the divisiveness of the online sphere, and sure, that exists. It's brought a lot of people together. It's helped people make a lot of friends, find like-minded people where maybe in their context, they are the one person or one of a handful of people who don't buy what they're being sold, and don't agree with the direction that every church seems to have made, and they've managed to find people in the wider Christian sphere who've encouraged them, who've said, no, you're not crazy, actually here's a good avenue forward for you, all of that stuff. So absolutely, no, I think in many ways it's been a blessing. And I do think one thing I've said a few times recently, is I do think the enemy overplays his hand. You talked about Satan, and the reality is we live in a spiritual world, and the enemy is real. He always seems to go too far, and there's always good that God brings out of the work of the enemy. I think we look at COVID, we look at BLM, and it was spiritually dark and destructive in many ways, and yet it has led to, I think, a lot of guys finding their voice. It's led to a lot of non-Christians, and I know many who during that time period realized the reality of spiritual darkness, and they were atheists, and they went, there's a devil. And I'm talking, so one of them actually is Josh Timonen, who was Richard Dawkins' right-hand guy. He was living in Portland during all of this, and he realized the devil is real in the midst of all of that. And in realizing the devil was real, realized God was real, and has come to faith in Christ as a result, and is walking with the Lord to this day. And I know a bunch of people like that who realized, because the enemy had pushed so far, that actually there must be a God, and have placed their trust in Christ. So yeah, I think there's been a lot of good that God has brought out of what was a very dark time.
Yeah. All right. As we wrap this up, Jamie, thanks so much for being here, spending time with us. I'm really excited to hear you speak at Dangerous Friends, hang out with some like-minded brothers for a few days in Ohio. Now, it's not lost on me that you're in Ireland. You're coming to Ohio in March. In a few weeks, we have here in America, we have a college football championship coming up, and it's Ohio State University versus the Fighting Irish, Notre Dame. Do you have a dog in that fight at all? I mean, you have some loyalty to Ohio. You're coming here to speak. Obviously, you know Stephen Whitlow and Redemption Church. You're from Ireland. Who are we picking in that? Or are we not a college football fan at all?
So most people, if they do know me, know that I did the Super Bowl remake advert video back last year. So I actually got into football I got into the NFL through college football.
Okay.
But that
There
was
you go.
because I was on a trip to Alabama. And so I am a
Like I said
roll
that.
tide. So
Oh, no.
I know, which hasn't gone well for me this year, but it's kind of like picking Real Madrid in the actual football. It's like, you're guaranteed to get lots of trophies. So I don't care anymore. As soon as they're out, I stop following it. So we'll go Ohio because I'm going there, I suppose.
Okay,
But
there
that's
you go.
pretty half-hearted, unfortunately, my support.
Yeah, well, I'm in Michigan, U of M fan. My brother-in-law and my
Good team.
sister from Alabama, so he's an Alabama fan. So we have some fun with that every year. And
Nice.
Michigan's got the better of them the last few years, but they'll be
have.
back. Jamie, thanks so much for being on. Shout out again. Everything's linked out below, but shout out maybe your X or socials where you want people to follow you at.
Sure. If people just search my name, search it on Google, search it on YouTube, search it on Twitter, Jamie Bambrick, they can find it there. It'll all come up, and that'll be awesome. No, thank you so much for having me on. Great conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And brother, we'll see you in a few months. Thanks so much. Guys, thanks for listening to another episode of Dead Men Walking Podcast. As always, you can find out more about us at dmwpodcast.com. Social media is Dead Men Walking. Just Google it. It will come up. We're on X and Facebook and all the places, Instagram. Hey, if you go to our merch site at dmwpodcast.com, pick up one of our mugs here. The Winem Dinem Romans 9 mug. That's a fun one. Or we got the new shirt out. How about you shut up and let that be your wisdom? Job 13:5. Sometimes you just got to quote scripture to the pagans, even if they don't like it. It helps support the show, helps us go to conferences. And remember, Dangerous Friends, March 13th and 14th. Go get those tickets. DMW25 is the code at checkout, and you get $25 off that ticket price. So, guys, remember, the chief end of man is to glorify God and enjoy him forever. God bless. Be sure to check us out at dmwpodcast.com, where you can purchase the best and snarkiest merch on the internet, support the show, and leave us a review or message. Dead Men Walking can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Dead Men Walking Podcast, and on Twitter X at Real DMW Podcast. The Dead Men Walking Podcast is part of the Fight Laugh Feast Network. For exclusive show content, be sure to download the Pub TV app and become a member. If you're a business that needs to reach hundreds of thousands of potential customers in your demographic, podcast advertising might be for you. Send all inquiries to deadmenwalkingpodcast@gmail.com.
None your biscuit.